Only four of you are here now. Please tell others to join soon, okay? Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen? Is it visible to you? Hello? Okay, okay, I'm only six of you. Where are the others? So anyway, I'll start. Okay. So yesterday we started the next part of sixth module, that is embedded product development life cycle, or in short we can call it as EDLC. And EDLC is nothing but a problem solving approach, that is to solve or to develop something we are following some sequence of steps, and these sequence of steps usually it follows the analysis, design, implementation phases. And this is an outline. This analysis, design, implementation is just an outline, but there are many phases involved in development depending on the complexity of the product. So before going on to the phases of EDLC, yesterday we discussed the importance of EDLC. So first point, we said that it is useful for understanding the scope, the complexity of work involved, etc. Then all second point is that it defines the various activities that are to be carried out during the development process. Then the activities include project management, design, development, testing, release management, quality assurance, etc. Then the third point is that the standards imposed by EDLC will make it developer independent. That is, if there are certain standards followed during development, then any developer who enters the development process can easily understand what is going on since standards are being followed. So it makes it developer independent. We can substitute one person instead of another, and he just studies these standards and then continues the work. That is why we are going for EDLC, because it defines specific steps, specific activities to be carried out during each phase of development. Now, the activities and phases we'll come to it in detail in the coming sections. Now, next is objectives of EDLC. I told you this is a sure question, objectives of EDLC. EDLC has three objectives. First is to ensure high quality products. So embedded systems, they are they are mostly developed for some end users, and these systems, if they are not of good quality, then the system will not survive in the market. So if the system does not survive in the market, then there is a huge loss. There will not be any profit. And if there is no profit, then it says that then the term used is there is no return on investment. That is, the company or the developers are spending a lot of money to develop the product, but if the product fails in the market, it won't gain any profit, it won't get any profit, so there is no returns. So the return on investment will be less. So ROI, or return on investment, is the factor which needs to be considered when developing EDLs, when following a particular product. And EDLC ensures that high quality products are delivered to end users by analyzing the parameter ROI. Then, second is risk minimization. Yesterday I said what risk is. Risk is any adverse situation that may hinder the development of a project. And risk minimization will be less if we are following the specific sequence provided by EDLC. And defect prevention is also possible when following EDLC through proper project management. Then, as we said, as you might have studied in software engineering and project management is essential for predicting, coordinating, then risk minimization, etc. Most of the activities that are needed for timely completion of a product is considered in project management. Then the third objective of EDLC is to maximize or increase productivity. Anybody who is entering the business, they try to increase their productivity to maximum. They try to maximize their productivity so that they get good ROI. The return on investment will be high. So this ROI is also a measure of efficiency, and productivity returns, in terms of returns, is said to be increased if the product is capable of yielding maximum returns. If the product is being sold in the market, and if when it is sold in the market, if customers are buying it, if a lot of people are buying it, then there will be a huge gain. And this in turn, it will yield maximum returns. And the investment may be less if the product, once they are giving a high ROI, then the manufacturing company, they just need to follow their existing design and produce new products instead of investing more on that particular product. This will result in high profit for the company. So productivity in terms of resource utilization is the use of automated tools. So productivity can be improved by using automated tools. If we are using automated tools, then productivity again is said to be increased. And if you are using automated tools, this will save manpower requirements wherever possible. If machines are doing work, then we don't need to have people to do the same work. If we because machines can do it much faster than human beings. So if we are going to automate certain activities, then this will increase productivity. Also, if we have another means to increase productivity is, if we are using parts of an existing system that has already been designed and which is working properly in terms of hardware as well as firmware, and for building a new product, then that will also increase productivity. And this will reduce the development time and effort required if we are going to reuse an existing technology. Then another way to increase productivity is to recruit people with the desired skill set. Instead of trying to make a new team learn the technology from the beginning, the company can recruit people who are skilled in that particular work. and so that the time can be reduced, the time to develop can be reduced. And so if people with desired skill set can be recruited for developing the current product, and which is also a way to increase productivity. So in this section, we have considered what are the various ways. The third point says that we have to increase productivity. So our third objective of EDLC is to increase productivity. But how can we increase productivity? That is what is mentioned in the following paragraphs. Productivity can be increased by increasing by analyzing the returns that the product gives once it enters the market. So by analyzing the returns, you can, if the returns is high, then the productivity is high. If the return is less, then the productivity is less. So another way to measure productivity is in terms of resource utilization. That is, to make efficient resource utilization, make use of efficient resource utilization, you can use automated tools wherever possible and save manpower wherever possible. This will increase productivity. Another way to increase productivity is to adapt parts of a system that is designed for an existing product. Instead of designing the part from the beginning, and adopt some parts that have already been built. And those hardware that are existing can be reused, or the firmware which have already been written for some other product, if it is similar with the new product, then that can also be reused, so that this will reduce the development time and effort. Then another way to increase productivity is recruiting people with desired skill. Instead of training people, if we are recruiting people with desired skill, then this also increases productivity. It will save development time and also the cost involved in training. These are the ways to increase productivity. So the three objectives, once again, I'll say the objectives. First is to ensure the development of high quality products. That is our first objective of EDLC, is to ensure that high quality products are delivered to end users. Second objective of EDLC is risk minimization and defect prevention. Third objective of EDLC is maximize or increase productivity. So these are the three objectives of EDLC, and we are in these paragraphs, we are discussing how it can be achieved. Is it clear to you? We were discussing about the objectives of EDLC. What are the three objectives of EDLC? What are the three objectives of EDLC? First objective is, once more I'll say, the first objective is to ensure that high quality products are delivered to end users. Okay, Amrita, high quality products, delivery of high quality products in general. If we are summarizing as a single point, the first point says that the first objective of EDLC is that we have to ensure that high quality products are delivered to end users. Now, second objective is risk minimization and defect prevention. When we follow EDLC approach, it is a good way to minimize risk and prevent defects. And the third point says that third objective of EDLC is to maximize or increase productivity. Any company in business field, they try to maximize or increase their productivity. Likewise, embedded products are to be designed for some end users, and they will be put into the market for sale. So these products, they should maximum, we have to maximize the productivity of these products, and to maximize the productivity or increase the productivity, the product should be accepted by the customers, end users, and they should buy the product. So the returns on the product should be high. So productivity can be increased in different ways. One is based on the returns. Then second is your resource utilization. By using automated tools, you can increase productivity. Then adopting certain parts of the system that has already been designed. So instead of redesigning it again, we can use certain parts that have already been designed. And then recruiting people with desired skill. This will eliminate the need for training and training people, and the time can be reduced, cost also can be reduced. These are the different ways in which we can increase productivity. Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Okay, Amrita. So you said first one. What is the second and third point? Okay, risk mitigation and defect prevention, maximize and increase. Oh, okay, okay, very good. Okay, so now let me go on to the different phases. This is an essay question. Okay, this objectives of EDLC is a 4 mark question or a 3 marks question, and phases of EDLC. This is a big question. It cannot, it is too big to write as a 9 mark question. So certain phases of EDLC will be asked. Okay, is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? This EDLC question, we cannot include it in a single essay question because it is too big to be included as an essay also. So I will just ask different phases of EDLC. You have to write all those phases which are mentioned in the question. Okay. Okay. So let us see the phases. Now, before going on to the phases, let us look what a model is. You might have studied many models. The life cycle model in software engineering. I think last class also I asked you that. So the life cycle of a product development is commonly referred to as a model. Life cycle model. Life cycle means the different phases through which a product goes through is called life cycle. And those different phases, the entire all the phases together, we call it as life cycle. So all the phases, even for human beings, we have different phases. We go through different phases from our childhood till till old age. We go through different phases, and that entire phase forms our life cycle. And you might have seen the life cycle of a butterfly, and or again there are different phases through which that butterfly is formed. So same way in software engineering also, the different phases of development is called a life cycle. And this life cycle has different phases, and the entire life cycle together we call it as a model. So models define, see that is what is written in the next sentence. Models define the various phases involved in the life cycle. So looking at a model, you can see what are the phases involved in the entire life cycle. So all phases together we call it as a life cycle. And looking at the life cycle, we can find out the different phases, and the entire life cycle gives a model of development. So the number of phases may vary. There are different life cycles which you might have studied. The number of phases may vary for each life cycle. Also, the activities carried out by each of these phases may vary. So here also for embedded system development also, there are different specific phases involved. So we have to study what are the phases involved in embedded product development. So here, the number of phases may vary, and this number of phases, it may depend mainly on the complexity of the product. For simple product, we may not go through all the phases of EDLC. But if it is a complex product, we have to consider all the phases of EDLC. The phases may vary for different products depending on its complexity. But even though the phases may vary, a typical simple product, it contains the following phases. Any product, even if it is a simple product or a complex product, it will contain the following 4 phases. This is necessary not only in embedded system, but any software you're going to develop. So you're doing your project now, you're developing a software now, and even in that software development process, you have to follow these 4 phases. Hope you understood why I am focusing on the first phase. Yesterday, I told you your project should include the analysis phase. Do you remember, Ashwati? Hello? So, just look at this. Whether it is a simple or a complex project, your project should include these 4 phases. And when I looked at one of the project report which you had sent me, this phase is missing. This analysis phase is missing. See, analysis, without analysis, we cannot go to design phase. So just after literature review, that report is just going to design phase. You cannot do that. So in your report, please do that correction and include a chapter called analysis, system analysis. You should write it as system analysis. And the system there is your system. Your system, that is the system that you are going to develop. And without analysis, you cannot design. So in analysis, we decide what to do. And in design, we decide how to do it. That is the difference between analysis and design. Without deciding what to do, we cannot decide how to do it. Isn't it? Do you agree with me? Hello? Yes, so you should first design when you when you develop your system, you should decide what to do first, and that procedure, deciding what to do, comes in analysis. And when you're deciding what to do, you have to consider what are the requirements. What to do means what are the requirements of your system, and requirements can be of two types: functional requirements and non-functional requirements. Usually, these two requirements should be included in this chapter. But if you are having only functional requirements, you can write out the functional requirements. That is, the functional requirements is nothing but what are the functions that your system will give as output. What are the functionalities that your system is going to do? And that is known as requirements of your system. Is it clear? For an attendance monitoring system, I think somebody is doing attendance monitoring system. So you will be dealing with certain functionalities like marking daily attendance, then generating the attendance report, notifying about absentees, etc. There will be several functionalities involved in your project. So those are the functionalities that should be listed under the requirements analysis section of the analysis chapter. Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? So what are the functions that you are going to implement in your system should be mentioned in the analysis chapter, and all those functionalities that you are going to do will become a use case for your system. So you have to represent all use cases, all your functionalities as use cases, and represent it as use case diagram in the analysis chapter. So I have seen that in design chapter, it is wrong. So you have to put that use case diagram in analysis chapter. Is it clear? Just take it from the designs chapter. I think in this, I didn't see your report, the previous year's report. Analysis use case diagram comes under design chapter, but just when you write your system or when you design, write your report, just bring it to analysis chapter. The use case diagram should be included in the analysis chapter. Since the main aim of use case diagram is to capture the requirements of the system. Use case diagram captures the requirements of your system, and requirements comes under analysis chapter only. Okay. Is it clear? Any doubt in that? Do you have any doubt in that? Okay. So, these are the, whether it is a simple or a complex product, it will contain the following 4 phases. That is requirements analysis. That is what your system is going to do, or what the embedded product has to be, is going to be, what functionalities the embedded product is going to be going to implement. Then the design, how the functionality can be implemented in the embedded product. Then third is development and testing. And once your system design is over, you have to develop the system, and finally after developing, you test the system, and then deployment and maintenance. Deployment is that giving out to the end user, and then maintenance is a continuous process. After giving to the end user, the period continues as maintenance period, because if any errors or any upgradation needed, you will have to support the end user. So that phase of support is known as maintenance phase. So these are the 4 phases which are necessary for a simple as well as a complex product. That is analysis, design, implementation, testing, and maintenance. In our report, we mentioned like that: analysis, design, implementation, testing, and maintenance. Maintenance usually we don't write because it is a continuous phase. After testing, we just give the results and then conclude when we write a project report, because we are not going to deliver it at present. So now let us go on to the classic embedded product life cycle model. So classic model means it includes the majority of the phases in the EDLC. We may not be in need of all these phases, but we are, for a complex, depending on the product that is to be developed, we have to include these phases. Anyway, the general phases for EDLC is shown below. This figure is very important. The classic EDLC is very important. Did you hear me? That figure is very important, okay? This figure, EDLC, whenever a question, what is EDLC? Explain your phases of EDLC with a need diagram. You have to draw this diagram. All phases may not be asked, but some of the phases will be asked in particular. So just let us have a look at what are the phases involved in EDLC. So this shows the life cycle of EDLC. Now let us start from this phase, the need phase. The first phase is the need phase. Then it goes to conceptualization phase. After conceptualization comes analysis, then design. See, here also you can see before design there is an analysis, so it should be included, okay? Analysis, design, development and testing, then deployment, support. This is nothing but the maintenance phase, giving support, then upgrades and retirement. These are the 9 phases involved in EDLC. Is it clear to you? After retirement, again the next need arises, a need for another product. One product may become outdated, but using a different technology, the same product can emerge again. So the need for that again arises, and again it goes to conceptualization, then analysis, design, etc. And this cycle continues. And when the product becomes obsolete, it is taken, it is removed out of the market. Nobody will start using it. And then again, we go for a new need. And then a new conceptualization phase goes on. This goes on. Okay. Is it clear? Is it clear to you? Okay. So what is a need? Let us look at what a need is. What a need is. What is a need? What is a need? For a product to be designed, some request or some need must be there from an end user, isn't it? So that is what the first, the EDLC first phase focuses on. That is, there should be a need either from an organization or either from a customer or from an individual. Anybody can put forward a need, and that need can be converted into a product. So first of all, to develop a product, there should be a need. Without a need, a product will not evolve. So the first phase is a need. And embedded products evolve as an output of need. And the need may come from either an individual, or it can come from a public, or it can come from a company. Anybody can anybody can come with a need, and that need can be converted to a product. So based on the need for a product, once the need is need arises, a statement of need is generated. a statement of need or a concept proposal is prepared. So an individual is approaching us and he wants to design something like a burglar alarm or something needed for his household. So first we gather the statement of need from him. We have to get the statement of need, or it is also called a concept proposal. Just like you give a project proposal, we have to consider the need can be converted into a concept proposal. And this concept proposal is to be reviewed by the senior management and the funding agency, whether it is possible to develop, it is feasible to develop the system and it is cost effective. So it is reviewed by the senior management. If it is a company that is going to develop the product, then it will be reviewed by the senior management and the funding agency for that, in that funding agency, in that organization for necessary approval. Once it is approved, it goes to the product development. Once the management agrees to develop the product or the funding agency gives the assurance that it is cost effective, then if the product, in this need, the statement of need or the concept proposal will be passed to the product development team. Okay, is it clear? Is it clear? So first, there should be a need for a product to emerge in the for our product to be developed. There should be a need. A need can arise from either an individual or it can come from the public or a company. So whenever a need arises, we have to document what the need is on a sheet of paper as a statement, and that is called the statement of need or concept proposal. Once a company, a development company, or a or some team that develops the product, once they get the concept proposal, it has to be reviewed by the senior management. If it is a company, it has to be reviewed by the senior management and the funding agency. And once they agrees to the concept proposal, then it is passed to the development team. Now next, let us see need. What are the needs can be of the following. That is, what are the needs that can arise? That is, the need can be a new or a custom product development. It can be either a new product or a custom product development. So that is, the need can be for a product that does not exist in the market or which act as a competitor for the existing product. So need can be either new or a custom product. So that is a product that does not exist in the market. So you have the developers has to design it from scratch. If it is an existing product, then again they can use the existing technology and develop the product with additional functionalities. So this they can thus we can say that need can lead to the development of a completely new product, or it can be the need arises as a result of product re-engineering. That is, re-engineering a product is the process of making changes to the existing product, and that is re-engineering. There is reverse engineering also. This is re-engineering. And re-engineering is the process of making changes to existing products. And this is done by incorporating new technologies. You're modifying the existing product and adapting it to new technologies, then we call it as re-engineering. So the need can arise as a result of product re-engineering and or design changes for performance, functionalities, aesthetics, look, etc. So, and this when after re-engineering, the existing product will emerge as a new version of the product. So that is called product upgrade. So the need can arise in order to upgrade a product, or it can arise to build a new product. So needs arises. What are the types of needs that can arise? One is to build a new or a custom product. Another is to develop or upgrade an existing product, and that is known as product re-engineering. So these are the two kinds of needs that can arise. So re-engineering comes as a result of change in business requirements, or to change the user interface, or because of technology changes. So these are the conditions under which we go for re-engineering. Then the third need is for product maintenance. That is, need deals with This need deals with providing technical support to the end user. You know what maintenance is. It is just to provide support to the end user, and this maintenance can be two broadly classified into two, that is corrective maintenance and preventive maintenance. There are other maintenance also, adaptive maintenance, etc. So here just we are focusing on the two main categories of maintenance, that is corrective maintenance and preventive maintenance. Corrective maintenance deals with making corrective actions following a failure or non-functioning. If the product that we have given to the customer, if it fails or if any functionality is not satisfied, then the developers do corrective maintenance on that product. Then another maintenance is preventive maintenance, and this preventive maintenance, it is also the scheduled maintenance. Scheduled maintenance means the product has not become defective or outdated, but we are checking it periodically to ensure that the product will function well in future. So it is scheduled maintenance, even if whether it fails or not, even if it is working properly, maintenance is done on the product to make sure that it works properly. So that is called preventive maintenance or scheduled maintenance, preventing from failure. Preventing scheduled maintenance to avoid failure of non-functioning of the product. So these are the three needs that can arise. One is the need for a new product, next is the need for a product and need to upgrade a product, and next is to maintain a product, need for maintaining the product. So we said what a need is, and needs are often documented in a statement of need or a concept proposal. Once it is accepted, it will be given to the development team. And here we say what are the three kinds of needs that can arise. One is to build a new or a custom product. Next is to upgrade a product, also called product re-engineering. And the third is product maintenance. And maintenance are of two categories, corrective and preventive maintenance. So that is the first phase of EDLC. Next is the second phase. So after a need has been accepted by the senior management and the funding agency, they give this proposal, the statement of need or the concept proposal to the development team. Now, the development team will carry out the next activities. So after the need, the next phase is conceptualization. So what is done in conceptualization? So in this phase, it is the product concept development phase. How the product can be, they just imagine how a product looks like, or what are the functionalities that can be included in this product. And this begins immediately after the concept proposal has been formally approved. That is, the senior management and the funding agency should approve the concept proposal. Concept proposal is, or the statement of need, is the need that the end user puts forward. And this should be approved. Once it is approved, the conceptualization phase starts. And during this phase, two activities are involved in conceptualization phase. There are two activities carried out in conceptualization phase. The first is the analysis and study activities, and the second is project planning. So conceptualization phase, in conceptualization phase, there are two activities carried out. One is the analysis and study activities, and the second is project planning. So that is the second phase. The activities carried out in the second phase. Conceptualization phase is the second phase, and here the product concept, it is the product concept development phase, which begins immediately after the statement of need has been approved. And statement of need is a need that happened in the first phase. And after approval, the conceptualization phase begins, and two activities are carried out in conceptualization phase. One is analysis and study activity, and the other is project planning. So hope this analysis is that important. You might have understood the importance of analysis. It is done in most of the initial phases of development. So let us see what this analysis and study activities do. It consists of the different activities. Again, it has sub-activities, around 3 activities. The first is feasibility study. Then next is cost benefit analysis, CBA. And the third is the product scope, whether it will survive in the market or not. So these are the three sub activities that should be carried out or in the analysis and study activities. So we'll continue with this conceptualization phase in the next class. Is it clear to you? Hello, is it clear to you? If you have any doubts, you can ask. Series exam. Series exam. Let me stop this record 1 minute. You take your attendance after that. Take your attendance. Okay, number 1, number 2, number 5. Answer. I think answer was here. Okay, answer. Then Anushri. Number 7. Number 8. 9. Okay. 11. 12. 13. Okay. 14. 16. 17. Okay. 18. 20. 22. 23. 22. Sharath PV. 22. 23. Okay. 24. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. 31. 32. 33. And number 3. Harida present. Harida. 33. Okay, answer present. Harida present now. Okay. Okay. So Sharath PV is absent today. I think I can see him in this.